everybody, and welcome to the Marley Bird YouTube channel and video 3 for the Love Like Gleams Knit Christmas Stocking. By this point, you have completed the cuff and the leg of your stocking, and you're ready to divide for that heel, finish the foot and toe, and complete the afterthought heel. Looking pretty good so far, isn't it? Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at that free pattern. Right down here, you can see that it's time to divide for the heel. And instead of placing stitches on scrap yarn, I have you bind off the back stitches of your stocking. Let me show you what I mean here. I'm gonna bring in what I've been working on with all of you a little bit further ahead. But right here, this is the leg of my stocking. And when I got to this point, this is where I bound off 21. I knit around on the opposite side. I essentially knit 42 stitches. And then I bound off 21 stitches again, which will make it so that you can end your work right here in the center of the back of your stocking. This is the back leg, okay? And then what we will do is we will then cast on 42 stitches and begin knitting right over here, work all the way around, come to the start of our cast on and begin to work around those stitches. So we're gonna bind off stitches over here and then cast on the same number of stitches we bound off over here, thus giving us a hole for our heel. And so when I take my stocking and fold it in half, this is something that probably it looks a little bit more familiar, right? So this is the leg. These are the stitches we bound off, right? There's 21 on this side, 21 on this side, and these are the stitches we cast on. And then once you cast on, you follow the instructions for the foot of the stocking. As you continue on to the foot of your stocking, you can continue with the written instructions, the color work chart, or the color blocks chart. Make a note also on the color blocks chart, it does not show decreases, and you will be doing decreases on the toe. The toe is written into the chart. Let me show you what I mean. As you take a look down here, this is the foot and the toe color work chart instructions. And you'll see, just like before, you're going to read your instructions from the bottom all the way to the top. But then when you get up here to row 31, we have these decreases again. And this is where we're decreasing to shape our toe. This is very similar to how you would decrease for the top of a hat. You'll work a decrease every other round until you get down to just a few stitches left. You'll cut your yarn and pull it together and thread that yarn through your live stitches and pull it together like a live string, like a drawstring. But as I mentioned, these decreases here, they don't show up on the color block. So make sure you make note of that, okay? You wanna make sure you make note of that. But as far as how to read these instructions, you should know how to do that by now. Remember these gray squares out here, those are no stitches. So those represent no stitch, and that's because as you work these decreases, we are decreasing one stitch. So that's why the chart no longer represents that one stitch, because it has been worked together in the decrease right there. Okay, I know you guys got that. And if you're curious why the free pattern doesn't look like this is the ad-free PDF actually. So if you're interested in having everything in one place without any ads, this is exactly what this is. Here's the color block instructions that I was telling you about. And then that brings us to the first finishing. Okay, first finishing. This is where you're going to cut your tail, put it onto a tapestry needle, thread your tapestry needle through the live stitches on your needles as if to knit, okay? When you do that, it makes the finishing very pretty. I'll show you in just a second. And then once you thread them all through, you're gonna pull it snug like a drawstring, just like I told you, and then secure your tail to the inside. So let me show you what I mean. When you do those decreases, you're gonna get a really pretty top of the toe, right? This is a really pretty toe. I like this toe, that's why I choose to use these. I like it a lot. But can you see how when I pull together the stitches, like this, by going into each one as if to knit and then pulling my yarn through, it just makes this finish just really nice and pretty. And then I thread it to the inside and I tuck in all of my ends. So everything is already tucked in for me. I even went ahead and tucked in my ends here. I decided I was gonna pull up my yarn there to kind of see what it would look like because it just went over a couple rows and I was like, I'm not really upset with that, so I liked it. So I went ahead and tucked in all my ends, and I tucked in all my ends on the leg also. So you can see here, I went ahead and did all of that, okay? All right, so here's the cool thing. So the first finishing is just that. When you follow all of the chart or the written or the color block instructions, you finish the toe. The first finishing is really just pulling together those stitches right there at the tip of the toe, okay? And then that brings us to the heel. Now, the afterthought heel is something that's very common in making socks. And usually when you do an afterthought heel, you put in scrap yarn to hold live stitches. I absolutely could have done it that way for this stocking, but I purposely chose to bind off stitches and then recast on because I just thought it looked good and it just kind of added a little bit more stability to hold the weight of the stocking since you're going to be filling it up with stuff. So I chose to bind off stitches versus putting it on scrap yarn. So those of you out there who might have done an afterthought heel before wondering why I did it that way, that's why I did it. So as you're following along with the heel instructions, there's a couple things you need to note. You'll see that we're making the heel with our color B, and you don't have to, you can use whatever color you want. I did the toe and the heel with color B, but you can use any color you want. I also have you start off with 16-inch circular needles, your smaller 16-inch circular needles. You could start off with your DPNs right away. That's actually how I'm going to show you here in the video. Either way works. You do what works best for you and what you're most comfortable with. Just know at some point you will have to transfer down to DPNs unless you do something like a magic loop. We're going to have the right side of our stocking facing us, and we're going to begin at the leg and pick up and knit 42 stitches along the bind off. So all those stitches we bound off, we're going to pick up and knit 42 stitches. And then we're going to pick up one stitch at the corner, and then we're going to, so it says here, these are the 43 stitches for the back of the leg. Referenced later, that's actually referenced for the Kitchener stitch. And then we're going to pick up 42 stitches along the front cast on edge. So we're just getting back our 84 stitches plus another stitch at the other corner and to go along with the other one we did. So when we're done with this round of picking up all these stitches, we're going to have 86 stitches on our needle. Okay. Once we do that, it's a matter of decreasing to get down to where we have a nice finished heel. And we're going to decrease at the corners, okay, where we pick up that extra stitch. We're going to decrease on either side of that to get a really cool look. Let me show you what it looks like on the sample. Okay, so let's fold this in this manner so that we're looking just at the heel. Okay, so right here, this is our heel. It looks really goofy, right? When it's just kind of out in this manner. But you can see, just like this, right? We decrease stitches on this side and we decrease stitches on this side, which gives us this nice finished, it kind of looks like a miter where the stitches all kind of come together. It gives a really nice look here and a nice look here. This is a very common way to work decreases like this. You can actually use this very decrease on the toe instead of the one that we chose. You could have the heel and the toe actually match. I chose not to do that because I actually like the round toe. But we're going to do this. And I'm just going to get you started with this. It's really quite easy. We're going to pick up our stitches and then get everything situated so that way we can do our decreases. And then once we get up to the number of stitches we're supposed to get to, we'll have to graft our heel together so it's going to look seamless. All right, so that's where we are going to end up here at the end. All right, so I have my sample I've been working on with you. You can see the colors. Again, they're a little bit, not a little bit, they're a lot more muted than the original colors. Let me bring in the original one more time so you can see them side by side. You can see the two colors side by side, right? But I will tell you, as I was working on this, my husband was like, ooh, that's really nice. Can I have that one? And I said, absolutely. So he loves the colors. He loves that it's a little bit darker. So we have the cuff, we have the leg. This is where you are going to work today. We are going to divide for the heel. Again, you're going to finish the foot and the toe, and you can create the toe in any color you want, okay? And the toe and the heel don't have to match colors. You can do with them anything you want. But I'm gonna have mine match. So for me, I'm gonna come up here with my color B, and here's where I'm gonna start. So the instructions tell us that it wants us to pick up the stitches that we bound off first, right? We're gonna pick up 42 stitches here. So I'm gonna start over here in this corner. And for me, I'm going to go ahead and use my double points, because I figure all of you can do this with circulars, but you might not be comfortable doing it with double points. So I'm going to show you with my double points. And how it's going to essentially break down, guys, we're going to have 2 double points on this side holding stitches. So I'll have 21 stitches here, 21 stitches here, and then I'll have 2 double points over here holding stitches, 21 here, 21 here. But remember, I also am going to pick up 1 stitch right here and 1 stitch right here. So maybe this one will have 22 and this one will have 22. You guys with me on that? Okay. This needle right here will be the one that I'm knitting with. All right. So here we go. I'm going to move all these out of the way. Let's grab my yarn. Again, I'm using my color B, which is this really beautiful blue color. I really like it. Okay, I'm going to start over here, and I can see where I bound off my stitches just right here. And so guys, this don't fret too much over this. It's a stocking, y'all. Look for your column of stitches right here and just come up here. I'm just going to go right underneath where it's like the V at the top where it has bound off. I'm going to stick my needle in, wrap my yarn around my needle, and then pull that yarn through. Find the next stitch, go into it, wrap my yarn around my needle, and then pull that yarn through. This is called a pick up and knit. So this would be my pickup, right? So I'm putting a stitch on my needle, and then this is my knit, and I pull it through. So I'm putting it on here. So I'm going to get 21 stitches on here. Go back and count. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 21. So once I get my 21 stitches, I'm going to grab another needle and I'm going to continue, and I'm going to place another 21 stitches all the way over here. Now I do want to make sure that I am trying to evenly space these out as possible. And because we did bind off 42 stitches and we're ultimately picking up 42 stitches, that should make it relatively easy. But you know what? Sometimes things go awry, and it's really okay if you have to redistribute stitches a little bit and it's not absolutely perfect. It's just a stocking, you guys. It's totally all right. So once you get your 21 on one needle, go ahead and continue on just in the same process. Stick your next needle in and pick up and knit stitches now on the next needle. Okay. All right, so that should be 21. I'm going to count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 21. Okay, so remember what I said. I have to pick up 1 stitch between this needle and the cast on edge, so right over here. And I'm going to pick it up with this needle. So what I want to do is I am going to just pick up 1 stitch here. So let's see. I'm going to go underneath this and underneath that. And pick up a stitch. If for some reason, when you pick up a stitch there, after the fact, you get a hole, it's not the end of the world, you guys. You can use your tails to seam up that hole, just kind of do a duplicate stitch there, and it will go away. It's okay. Don't fret. Don't get absolutely discouraged because you get a little hole there. It's not the end of the world. It's absolutely all right. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to come over here to my cast on edge, and it's going to be the same process. I'm going to pick up 21 on one needle, 21 on the next, and then 1 stitch over there. You go ahead, do the same thing on yours, and we'll meet back at the start of our round. And that's when we will get everything situated for the heel. Once you finish picking up your stitches, it looks a little something like this. And just so you guys have orientation of where I am, this is where we started. We're going to work down this needle. This is needle 2. So we work down here. This is where we picked up with the extra stitch, and it's on my needle 2. We picked up stitches on the cast on edge with needle 3, cast on edge with needle 4, and picked up 1 extra right here, and it's on needle 4. So if you are using circular needles at this point, this is where you would be. Okay, it would look something like this, and you'd be putting a marker right here to indicate the start of your round. All right, now on round 1, you'll see that I do say that there are markers that you can put in place, but if you do your needles like this, you're going to see that you don't need the markers. However, the instructions are there if you're on circulars and need those markers. Okay, so what we're going to do is a decrease round. So we're going to knit 41 stitches and then knit 2 together, and then knit 41 stitches and then knit 2 together. Okay, now the instructions say you're supposed to put a marker after you do your decrease, but we have a natural break with the DP ends here. If you're on circulars, place your marker there because that's going to let you know where you're working your decrease. But if you're on DP ends, you'll know you're going to work those decreases at the end of these needles. So we're going to knit 41. When you transition from one needle to the next, if you're using double points, the biggest trick here, guys, when using double points is making sure that the first 2 stitches on the new needle are really nice and tight. So we're going to knit this first one, and we're going to make sure it's nice and tight to where that stitch is buttoned up as close to that one on the other needle as possible. And then we knit the next one just the same way. And then we keep going. Come down here, that's 41. Now I'm down here, we're just going to do a knit 2 together. Okay, we're going to knit 2 together. That's going to get rid of that side stitch we picked up and knit, and it's going to connect it to that one. And then I'm going to essentially just repeat all of that. So I'm going to knit down to the end of needle 4 and do that knit 2 together again. This is where I'm going to do a knit 2 together. It's going to put that 1 extra stitch I picked up in the corner and knit together with the last stitch, and I'm back to the start of my round. You guys see that? I'm back to the start of my round, okay? From here on out, we will be decreasing 4 stitches every time we do a decrease round. So when we take a look at our work, you will be decreasing. Let me see here. Here's the start of my work. I will be decreasing at this point. So at the start of needle 1, at the end of needle 2, at the start of needle 3, and at the end of needle 4. If you're using circulars, you'll notice that it will tell you to work to the marker. So have those markers in place. Essentially, your markers represent where I have automatic breaks in my knitting, so I don't need markers. I know exactly where I'm going to decrease because I already have my stitches divided out really well. All right, so this next round is another decrease round, but it's the decrease round we will end up repeating every other round. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to pick up my work, and away we go. We will knit 1 and then knit 2 together. Now I'm going to knit until 3 stitches before the marker. Well, I've already told you that my needles here have that natural break where the marker would be, so I can just knit to 3 stitches before the end of my needle 2. If you're using circulars and a marker, go to 3 stitches before your marker. This is why I wanted to make sure I showed you how to do both ways, depending on what your preference is. I really like using my double points on the heel, so this is my preferred way. So I'm going to go to 3 stitches before the marker. Here we are. Now I'm going to do an SSK. So I slip one as if to knit, slip one as if to knit, put my left hand needle into the front leg of both of those stitches and knit them together. and then knit 1. This is where you will slip your marker and repeat. So I don't have a marker, but I'm just going to go to my new needle and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'll do my repeat of knit 1. So this is the start of my needle 3, and then I will do a knit 2 together, and then I'm going to knit to 3 stitches before my marker, or for me it'll be 3 stitches before the end of my needle 4. Again, make sure your stitches are nice and snug as you transition from one needle to the next. And you might not be using your double points now, but you will be using those as you get fewer stitches, unless you're doing a magic loop technique. So this is important information. It helps prevent any sort of ladders. And this would be where my marker is, so I will do a slip, slip, knit, and a knit 1. And that brings me to the start of my round. And I know that one because my tail is right here, right? My tail is right here. Then I also know because it's the side of my stocking, so I know that where I am. I will go ahead, and round 3 is just knitting. So this round is sort of like we get a reprieve, and it allows us to let all of those decreases sort of settle into place. So you just knit all the way around on this round. As you come up to the end of this round, your work looks a little something like this. Doesn't look like much, right? Doesn't look like much at all. But you're beginning to do your shaping right here and right here, which will allow your heel, you see how this is coming up here? So this point on your needles is this point on your heel. If I were to separate that out, that's how we're doing our decreases here. We're creating those here, okay? Here's where you're going to continue on repeating rounds 2 and 3 until you have 21 stitches between your markers. Essentially, you're going to cut down to half the number of stitches you have, right? So if you're not using markers, you want to get down to where you have 21 stitches on needles 1 and 2, and then 21 stitches on needles 3 and 4. Okay, it's pretty easy. I want you to go ahead, get to that point, join me back here, and then we're going to learn how to Kitchener stitch or graft your heel together so that way it'll look really nice and seamless. It's a really easy technique to do, and I can't wait to show you. All right, so get to knitting. I'll see you back here. Man, you're done already? Geez, I thought I was a fast knitter. No, in all seriousness, hopefully you are done with all of the shaping on the heel and you're ready to do the Kitchener stitch. Let's take a look at what mine looks like. All right, here's where I have left off. I've done all of my shaping along this side of the heel and along this side of the heel. I'm left with 21 stitches right up here at the top of the needle. Now I'm going to give you guys a little tip here. If you wanted to have your heel a little bit wider, you could always have more stitches than 21. If you want your heel a little bit narrower, you could go fewer stitches than 21. It's totally up to you. You do what you think is best. Once you've done that, I want to make sure that you put all of the stitches from your needles on just 2 needles. So you're going to have 21 stitches from the leg portion on one needle, 21 stitches from the foot portion on the other needle, okay? And you'll notice that the yarn is coming off of the needle in back, which is my leg needle, okay? It's coming off of the needle in back, which is the leg needle. Now, this is where we are going to graft the yarn. You want to cut your tail about 4 times the width of the fabric you're about to join. I always err on the side of caution, you guys, and do more than 4 because I just don't want to ever run out, okay? And then thread that onto a tapestry needle. I love bent tip tapestry needles for this. If you don't have one, I highly recommend getting a bent tip tapestry needle. Once you've done that, we're going to prepare our work. Now, these instructions are written in the free pattern once again, or on the ad-free PDF. I also have a handy dandy little thing here that I got as I was working on socks. It's from Katrinkles.com, and it walks you through how to do the Kitchener stitch. And then if you are somebody who likes making socks, it talks about some different sock measurements for women and men. It's really super convenient to have around if you tend to do the Kitchener stitch a lot and forget how to do it. But regardless, let's go ahead. Here we go. So we've cut our yarn, we have our needles ready to go. So we're going to insert our needle purlwise into the first stitch on the front. All right, so our yarn is coming off the back. We're going to go in purlwise on the first stitch on the front and pull it through. And we're going to leave that stitch on the needle. Now we're going to go into the first stitch on the back needle, knitwise, so go in like to knit, and pull your yarn through. You got that? That's the setup. Now we're going to continue. Come back up here to the front. You're going to go into the first stitch on the front needle as if to knit and take that stitch off the front needle. Go into the second stitch on the front needle as if to purl and leave it on. First stitch on the back needle, go in as if to purl and take it off. Go in to the second stitch as if to knit and leave it on. Notice I kind of did it in like a, sort of like a one full action here. I don't know, I'll show you again. Notice also I'm taking my yarn, I'm going beneath my needles, okay? Front needle, you're gonna knit, take it off, purl, keep it on. Bring your yarn beneath the needles. Back needle, we're going to purl, take it off, knit, keep it on. And you're going to do this all the way down to the end, okay? When you get down to the last few stitches, you will still follow the knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on. When you get the last two, just complete the cycle. It'll be knit off and then purl off because that's all you have left. Give this a good pull. Okay, you might have a little bit of ear here. That's okay. You can use your tail to just tuck this in and weave in your end on the inside of your stocking. Let me go ahead and just pull this to the inside. All right, once you do that, you can see it pulls in the ears on the side and you have a nice grafted heel. Look how great that looks. It looks positively seamless. Pretty awesome, right? Okay, so here we go. Let's take a look at what we have. Look how cute the heel of this stocking is. Here's the toe. Here's the leg. Oh, it's just so cute, okay? So this stocking looks like it's ready to go, right? It has everything completed on it. But you've probably noticed there's one thing missing. How are we gonna hang this up, right? Well, in the written instructions, you'll notice that I give you two ideas. One is to make an I-cord. Everybody knows how to make an I-cord, right? And the second is to get a piece of leather strip and apply it and hang it up with a leather strip. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and do the I-cord because I love I-cord, but more importantly, I found a new tool from Prim that creates I-cord for me very easily. It's beautiful and it's easy to use. Let me show you. To make a very simple I-cord, it's as easy as just using your 2 double points and then knitting a few stitches, right, to create a nice tube. Very simple, very easy to do, and you can add this to your piece, right? So I made this one to add to my original because I thought it looked really good with the red. However, say you're like, I'm so done with my knitting needles right now. I just spent all this time knitting. Well, enter this very awesome tool. Let me set this aside. This is the Comfort Twist Knitting Mill. This thing is absolutely fantastic and I can't wait to show you this. I saw this at the store and I was like, I've got to buy that. And so I did. I bought it and I brought it home. I played with it. I'm like, this is amazing. I have to show people how to use this. Let me go ahead and move these aside so we can get a full look at what we're working with here. This tool, the Comfort Twist Knitting Mill, is made by Prim, and it is super fantastic. I want you to see. First off, this is a weight that is added to the bottom of the I-cord as you're making it, so that way you can easily make the I-cord. And look, it just pops off, okay? So this is to store it, but this is what we are going to tie our yarn to so it can add some weight to the I-cord. This here unscrews so that way you can put this on a table and mount it, right? Just like you would like a yarn winder, okay? So you can mount it to a table, or you can keep this screwed up just like so, and you can hand hold this, okay? You can hand hold this. Inside here, you're going to see there are 4 latch hooks, and those latch hooks are what are going to create the I-cord. There's this nice big plastic sort of shield here that helps feed the yarn in so that way it can go through this center, and the latch hook creates the I-cord. It comes out this bottom bit here, and that's where the yarn is going to be attached to the weight, so that way we can get some I-cord happening. This is so easy to use. It's absolutely fantastic, and it's absolutely worth the price. All right, so let's make some I-cord to go with the one I just made. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to stick with my color B just because I like it. And I am going to use my tapestry needle here, because you will need the tapestry needle at the very end, but it's helpful here at the start. So if you thread your yarn onto your tapestry needle, and we're going to take this needle and dump it right there through the center of the Comfort Twist Knitting Mill. And hopefully, I'm going to make sure I don't get too much. When I pop it through, see how it comes all the way through? Came through, so that added some weight to pop it through. I can now take this off, but don't let it go too far because we're going to use it. And I give myself a nice long tail, okay? The reason I'm doing this is I can use this tail to seam this I-cord to the inside of my stocking, so that way it will be nice and secure. Now I'm going to take the weight, and you know what? I'm going to use this again because this was easier for me last time. I'm going to thread this onto here and then thread this through the weight. There we go. That was easier. And then I'm just going to tie my yarn around the weight. All right. Just tie my yarn around the weight. There we go. All right. Okay. So now my yarn's around the weight. Here on my knitting mill, I need to make sure that all of my latch hooks are open. So all of my latch hooks are open. And I want to make sure that my yarn is going to be caught in the first latch hook to start. We're going to skip the second. We're going to let the third catch it, and we'll skip the fourth. That's what we're going to do to start, okay? Now, I have to hold this up so that way the weight kind of adds some tension. There we go. I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to do this. I'm thinking I'm going to hold this up here like this. Maybe I'll hold it. Okay, that's probably good. So you can see it in front of me, and then you can still see it on the camera, okay? So I'm grasping the contraption. I'm holding this so I have some tension, right? And then this is pulling on the yarn. So I have my yarn right here. The first hook, as I wind, and I can wind clockwise or counterclockwise, it doesn't matter. It's going to grasp the yarn with the first hook. Okay, I want to make sure I get underneath that hook. All right, and I come over here. I want to make sure my yarn does not go to the second hook to start. Keep going. I want it to go to the third hook, and then I do not want it to go to the fourth. Okay, and this is just for the start. Now I'm going to keep going around, and I'm letting the thing fall. Sorry. I'm going to keep going around, and this time I'm going to let all 4 hooks get into action. And as I go, I want to make sure that the yarn is coming off of the hooks as I rotate around. I keep tugging. I don't know if you can see, I keep tugging on the tail where the weight is, just to pull and make sure everything is coming through the way I want it to. And then once it gets going, you're going to start seeing some I-cord transition to the bottom. I'm gonna give myself some more yarn here. Okay, I'm gonna hold this up and I'm just gonna keep going. So whether you wanna see the full screen or me on screen with the contraption, can you guys see this? So you can make this as long as you want, obviously. This is so great, guys, for like drawstrings of bags, for shoe ties, for belts, for just about anything, y'all. Stockings. It's such a great thing to have because it makes making I-cord so easy. All right. I don't know if you can tell, it's starting to come out right here. So I'm going to keep going and let it keep getting a little bit bigger. It just keeps going around. It's so unique. Can you see? There it is. There, it's starting to come through. I know I don't want this like super long, so I'm just going to keep going a little bit more. And you can see the weight here, guys. It's just, it's pulling this down, which pulls the yarn from inside here. So after it comes off the latch hook, it doesn't just get stuck in there and become a big knot. All right. Okay, so I think that's about as long as I want it to be. All right, maybe just a couple more. It becomes very addictive, y'all. It becomes very addictive. Now, again, do you have to have this contraption? No, you can absolutely use knitting needles. This makes things so much easier. All right, so this is about as long as I want it. I'm gonna come down here again. Again, I'm gonna give myself a nice long tail because I can use that to seam anything together. And then right here, I'm gonna let this go around and just pop off all of them. Okay, so now I have 4 open loops. You see that? There are 4 open loops, just like if your knitting needles came out of your yarn and you have 4 loops, that's what you have. So I'm gonna pull this all through. This is done. This is so magical, you guys. Okay, first thing I'm gonna do, just because I will lose things, is I snip the yarn off of the weight. And I'm going to put the weight right back on. See how it just snaps right on there? See, guys, it just snaps off. This is really heavy. I shouldn't say really heavy. It's relatively heavy. And then it snaps on for easy storage. Okay? All right. Back over here, I want to make sure I get my tail that's attached up here where those loops are. And just like when we thread our yarn through those loops that were on our needles for the toe, we're going to do the same thing. So just go into each loop here. Now, we can't really distinguish whether we're going in knitwise or purlwise. Right now, I just want to get into the loops. So I'm just going to go into each one. 1, 2, 3. And notice I'm not starting with the one where the yarn's coming out. I'm starting next to it. Pull that through. Before you pull it all the way through, get into that last one. So right here, I'm going to pull it like a drawstring. Look at that. Okay? So now I have this really great I-cord, just like so. I can make it, I have a decision to make, right? I can leave it opened up and stitch both ends to the inside of my stocking. I could stitch both of these ends together and then stitch it to the inside of my stocking. That's probably what I'm gonna do because I tend to like making sure that the pieces are together, especially because it's gonna be holding the weight of the stocking, right? So I usually will stitch them together just a little bit. You could even tie a knot if you wanted to with the 2 tails. Here we go. All right, so I've done that. Let's bring in my finished stocking here that we worked on together. And I've already added my little cork patch here. I love these things. I get them off of Etsy. I will try and put a link in the video description box below because I really highly recommend the guy who does them for me. And I'm gonna just even up my tails here so it's easier for me. I'm just going to thread them both onto my needle. And let's pick a point. So if I wanted to hang, I want it to hang from the inside. So I have this nice Latvian braid here, right? So I'm just probably gonna apply it right here to the inside. Let me just poke, make sure I'm not going through the Latvian braid, but I'm in that general area. I just wanna make sure I'm in that corner, right? Make sure once again, before I do anything, I'm right here in this corner edge, and so right here is where I want to be. Pop this down. So now I can seam this together as close as I want. I can make it to where it's not attached to the picot. I can make it attached to the picot. I can do whatever I want. So because we have all of this nice like fabric here, we have all these floats, we have the Latvian braid happening. There's a lot of stuff here for us to attach, okay? And for me, I always play around with it, guys. I decide whether I want to do it like full on attached to the whole thing, like all the way up through the picot. After I do this part first, right? I just kind of attach it all in here, and I'm just stitching it on willy-nilly, guys. There is no like special grace to this at all. Just making sure it's nice and secure. Okay, let's just kind of play with that for a second before I cut any tails. So this is where I am. So it's going to pull like that. Am I okay with it not being attached to the picot there? Actually, I think I am. I think that's going to be nice. Just hanging like that. And it's going to hang. Here, let me hold it up to the face camera. It'll hang just like so. Look how pretty that is. With this cool I-cord. And so simple. Guys, look. Just take my word for it, get yourself the machine, and then you can add I-cord to everything because it's like the coolest thing ever. But now that I've stitched that on, I just want to make sure that I am going to stitch it on just a little bit more because I'm a little paranoid about it. And then I'm going to put that red one onto my other stocking that I made because I thought it just looked really great with the red. I think it's because I didn't use red on the other one very much, and so I was like, I'm just going to pop that on there. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy with these little I-cords. I think they're the perfect little touch. I absolutely love the Knit Picks or We Crochet City Tweed. If you're using this one too, you absolutely know exactly what I'm talking about. It's been delightful to use. I have also loved using my signature Needle Arts needles. If you have not tried these needles, I highly recommend using them. If you use the code Marley Knits, all capital letters, you can get 10% off of signature needles at signatureneedlearts.com. And then of course, guys, the Prim Comfort Twist Knitting Mill. This thing is fantastic. You absolutely should get one of these and just add I-cord to everything because it is just so much fun to use. It's really easy and simple. If you want to be entered for a chance to win one of these awesome little tools, make sure you check out the link in the video description box below. All right, I cannot wait to see your Christmas stockings out there. As you make them, please be sure to share with me on social media. Use hashtag MarleyBird or hashtag MMMDI for Marley Made Me Do It. That's it for me, everybody. I will see you in the next video. Bye.